What's up, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new video. In this one, I am going to be reviewing and rating the top 10 favorite movies of my sister-in-law, Miss Maddie Musgrove. This is part of an ongoing series that I've been doing. So far, I've hit all the people in my family, or all the people that have been in my family, and I have just a few more here before I'm done with my immediate family. And so I think this is going to be episode 7 of the series, where I'm going to be diving into Maddie's top 10 favorite movies. And when Maddie sent me her list, it's such a fun list. Like just looking through it, it has a good amount of comedies. I think more comedies than have been on any of the other lists. There's a few emotional movies on there, a couple dramas. There's some classic movies on there that you just hear them and they're just classic films. And even for good measure, she has some sports movies on there, a few of those. So thank you, Maddie, for sending me this list. I do want to mention, I mentioned this in all of my videos, that my rating is based on one thing only, and that is my enjoyment of the film. And that means two things. One, I'm not basing how good of a film it is. So even if it's a great film, then I can understand if a movie is a great film. I can understand why it gets a lot of praise and a lot of awards. Doesn't mean that I necessarily enjoy it. And that can go both ways. Just because a film is considered maybe critically bad or panned, I can still enjoy it, and so can you. And also, just because I rate a movie low does not mean that it shouldn't be someone else's favorite movie. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion and their own favorites. I bet if people did this on my list, it probably wouldn't get a high score, and that's okay. Those movies are still my favorite. So we're going to get into this. We're going to start with a movie that I actually have reviewed before for this series, and that is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. This is one of those ones that I'm talking about that's just an absolute classic. You hear the film and you can just envision it. You can see E.T. You can see the bike flying through the sky. Overall, this is a movie that has aged pretty well, narratively, but also just visually in terms of the effects. Obviously, specifically with E.T., the puppetry and effects that they use for him is just really good. Also, I want to highlight the really good performances from the young actors in this film. Most of the acting screen time is from younger actors, child actors, and they did a great job. And I think this is one of the most famous movies there is, so I don't know what else I can say about it that hasn't already been said. Overall, I'm going to give E.T. a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, we have 50 First Dates, which is come on, it's peak Adam Sandler. Come on. This is when he was in his golden age. He and Drew Barrymore have great chemistry, which is why they've made multiple movies together. I can think of at least 3 off the top of my head. Maybe it's just those 3. I don't know. It's a great concept for a rom-com. I think the 2 things that make or break a rom-com are the chemistry between the couple, and then the setup and the concept for how are they getting there, why are they falling in love, how are they falling in love, how do they meet. Not necessarily just the meeting, but just the whole situation. And I think this one is a great one, especially for the comedy aspect of it. It leads to a lot of funny bits and moments. I also think the supporting cast, specifically the 2 actors that play her family, Blake Clark and Sean Astin, are just hilarious in this film. And the way that Henry, Adam Sandler's character, just goes about continuing to love Lucy is just really sweet. And I think the ending is also really well done. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Tommy Boy. So a movie that I just reviewed for my father-in-law JJ's list. This is a pretty comical movie. It has a lot of classic jokes, quotable lines, great physical comedy. I mean, come on, it's Chris Farley. Of course, it's going to be great physical comedy. I think Farley and David Spade also have some fantastic chemistry in this movie. Rob Lowe's character also, so going into this movie, I don't think I mentioned this in my last review. I had no idea that Rob Lowe was in it. And I just think his character is just such a great villain, just so slimy and such a jerk. And I just think it's hilarious. I like this movie because it doesn't try to do too much. It sets up the story and it gets into it. I don't think that it's not too convoluted. It's not I think that's a plus. And I think it works for this type of comedy. Another 7 out of 10. Next up, we have The Sandlot. So with coming of age movies, there's really one thing that can make or break it in my books, and that is going to be the relatability. Okay. So it's just, um, it's like, if you does it make you think of your childhood, or if you are a kid, do you watch that and be like, dang, that's stuff I'm going through? And I think that The Sandlot just nails that absolutely. And I think it's even more impressive because obviously I was not a middle schooler in the 60s when this movie is based, or even in the 90s when this movie came out. I'm not even a baseball guy. Like, I didn't play baseball as a kid. I'm not really even into baseball. But I think it just hits the feelings and emotions of being a kid so well, of wanting to have friends, wanting to connect. The storytelling of kids, how everything just gets so blown out of proportion and becomes this fantastical story. And also, it's so funny, and there's so many lovable characters and lines, and it's just a hilarious film. I'm gonna give The Sandlot, honestly, like, just watching it, I was grinning the whole time. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So, heavyweights. This movie, I'm sure, I would believe, is probably extremely nostalgic movie for Maddie from her childhood. And I'm gonna say this: if I had watched this movie when I was a kid, I would have absolutely loved it, and would still probably to this day. However, that's not the case. I did not watch this movie until I was doing this list, and so I don't think it quite landed for me as intended. Like I said, I think if I had seen this movie and grown up with it, I would absolutely love it. But since I'm just now seeing it, I think that takes away from a lot of the humor and a lot of the jokes. But I will say it did get a handful of laughs from me. I think Ben Stiller was pretty funny in it. I think it's always impressive to me, movies with young cast, which, I mean, I've already said a couple of them: E.T., Sandlot, Heavyweights. Like, I think it's impressive when it's mostly young cast and they mostly hold their own. I thought it was funny that there was a young Kenan Thompson feature, because, I mean, that was probably before he was in, I mean, anything else. I also want to give it its credit that it's a movie that could not be made today. And I think that is, that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. I think in this instance, it's a thing. And I'm going to give Heavyweights a 5 out of 10. My Girl. Oh my goodness. So this one hits you right in the gut. Okay. So it's like, it feels almost like a comedy for most of it, but then there's just a few things sprinkled in where it's like, oh no, this is a drama. This is an emotional movie. I think the acting, specifically the young duo, like I said, I'm very impressed when young actors can hold their own. Of Anna Chlumsky, I believe is her name, and Macaulay Culkin, of course, the best child actor ever, was pretty good. I think it touches on a lot of topics throughout the movie, which I think is impressive because it does it pretty well. Like, it'll hit it. It doesn't just focus on one hard thing. It focuses on lots and lots, like experiencing the loss of a parent, just going through being a young kid, a young girl, and the things that come with that. Your parent moving on, finding new love, you having a childhood crush, and spoilers if you haven't seen this movie that came out like 30 years ago. Thomas J. Oh my gosh, that has got to be one of the hardest hitting deaths in a movie. So I know a lot about movies, even if I haven't seen them. So I knew that was what was coming. My wife watched it with me, did not know that was coming, and was like, that was completely out of left field. I did not see that coming in the slightest. And the scene at the end with I just forgot the girl's name. Veda. There we go. I was thinking other names that started with a V. I was like, I know that's not right. Veda at his funeral is just so emotional. And she's like, his glasses, where are his glasses? Oh my goodness. Just very, very sad. 7 out of 10. The Benchwarmers. Okay, so this is a pretty funny movie. I want to especially shout out David Spade and John Heder, because their characters specifically and their acting, their portrayals, just had me cracking up for most of the movie. I think there are a lot of funny actors with funny moments in this movie, but those two, for me, just absolutely dominated. They did so well in this movie. I think the concept is also, I know I mentioned in Tommy Boy how simple it is and that works, but this one is so outlandish that it works. Like, some guys that used to be losers and in high school and are still losers, never played baseball as kids. They never got to. Now they're going to play baseball. Now this guy's a billionaire and he's paying for this, and there's going to be this, and the winning team gets a stadium, so they're playing against these kids, and it's just like, it's so outlandish that it works. I also want to shout out, I think the two little bits that I loved the best was the character of Carlos, who is 12. And it's like, I feel like that's a pretty common meme. Like, I feel like that meme is more famous than the movie. And also, shout out to Terry Crews. I thought that his character with the wigs was just also pretty funny. 7.5 out of 10. Now we're going to move on to Step Brothers. So we've hit some good comedy movies so far, but I think this is the funniest of them all so far. And I think this is one of the funniest movies, period. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly have some of the, if not the very best chemistry between a duo in a comedy movie. I can really only think of a handful of movies that are as quotable from this one from start to finish. It's just everybody knows the Step Brothers quotes. Everybody knows all these different things. Also, huge shout out. Obviously, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are the heroes of this film, but I think the unsung hero of this film is the cringy D-bag of a villain played by Adam Scott. I think Adam Scott is perfect in that role. I think he just does it to perfection. And so I definitely want to give him a shout out. I give Step Brothers a 9 out of 10. Remember the Titans. So I would say this is the best football movie of all time. I didn't actually sit down and look up a list of football movies, but I'm confident saying that, and I don't think many people would probably argue with that. I think Denzel just gives such a strong portrayal in his role of Coach Boone here. The supporting cast too, the other adults and all the players and the kids are just such interesting dynamic that bring these different weights and different relationships and these people struggling with different things into this team, and it is just so well done. Also, I talked about a little bit about it with Kenan Thompson earlier. There's tons of different movies when it's like actors that go on to become much more famous than they were in that movie. It's just like, I love seeing those. And in this one, it's Ryan Gosling for the fact that he has such a minor role and he goes on to become, off the top of my head, other than Denzel, the most famous actor in that movie by far. It's just like, I think that is so funny. 9 out of 10 for Remember the Titans. Finally was my surprise of the list. There's usually been one of these on almost every list, and that is On Golden Pond. So I'm going to say this. The plot of this movie is not exciting by any means on paper, but that's how you know that it is so good and so well written and so well acted, that it just builds and sets the scene for all these different relationship dynamics amongst not a ton of characters. It's like five main characters, and it's just the relationships between them and all the different things going on, and how those relationships grow, they change, the characters grow. We see so much growth in some of these characters, and the way that these relationships strengthen just so well. It's so well done in this movie. Henry Fonda and Katharine Hepburn obviously both gave such emotional performances. Obviously, they're two of considered the greatest actor and actresses of all time. Like, they're up there on a lot of lists. They both won Oscars for this film, which is just so impressive. And I don't know, this is just an extremely heartfelt movie. Also, spoilers, again, this movie came out so long ago, so I feel silly even saying that, but I just will, just in case if you haven't seen it. It's so refreshing that the old guy doesn't die. Like, I feel like that is just such a movie trope. It's going to be about an old man or an old couple. He's talking about death the whole movie, and it just feels like it was going to end with him dying. And the fact that it didn't, and it ended with them being happy and being like, oh, our kid is often grown. Yes, we're on our own, but that's okay. Like, it's very refreshing. Also, I'm going to say this because everyone watching this was thinking this, and I literally said it to my wife, and this is not normally something I would say, but she told me I could. Young Jane Fonda was kind of freaking hot, like, for real. And so that, I don't know, I guess that's a plus. 9 out of 10. So that brings our total to a 77 out of 100, which I don't think is bad. Like I said, I've only done... This is the 7th episode of this list, so I will say that is in 7th place at a 77, behind an 80, which was a tie between my other sister-in-law, Olivia, and my father-in-law, JJ. But I still think a 77 is good, a 7.7 average. That's just like, if I see a movie, I think a 7 is the most common score that I give whenever I'm rating movies. And that's not because it's my average. I understand that 5 is average, but it's just because if I see a movie and I enjoy that movie, it's just like that's a 7 right there. And it's like it's hard for me to watch a movie and think that it's bad. But the reason I'm saying that is because a 7.7, I know it's lower than the rest, but that is not bad. I still think that's a great score. 77. Maddie, thank you for putting together this list. I did enjoy watching all these movies and doing this list. So thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm doing all my in-laws right now, so the next episode I believe will be my mother-in-law Renee's favorite movies. And I think I'm about to record my Oscar predictions video, but I will imagine that will actually probably come out first. I'm not 100% sure, but that'll probably come out first. But I don't know what the next video will be. It'll either be that list of Renee's movies or maybe an episode of Pillow Talk. I'm not 100% sure. But stay tuned for that. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace.